Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Goodwine Zone. I am here today with Kim Curra, or as we like to call her in the Goodwine Zone, Accountant Extraordinaire. You're supposed to laugh at that.
Thank you, yes.
I'm trying to loosen Kim up just a little bit. She's a bit camera shy, unlike me, who is quite the opposite, a camera hog. So maybe some of this vibe will go into you, Kim, and you can loosen up a little bit.
Thank you.
Should you tell it? Do you want to start with telling a joke?
Maybe.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell a joke and get us loosen this thing. Okay. Yes. So I was talking to this guy the other day about, what's the greatest ship, or the most valuable ship. Really, that's what we're talking about. The most valuable ship. So, like, you think if a ship is made of all wood,
right. Mm-hmm.
Then that's probably not as valuable as a ship that's made of, say, silver. Mm-hmm. A silver ship would be more valuable than a wooden ship.
Because, yeah.
Right? And then a gold ship, that would be even more valuable than a silver ship.
I guess.
Who knows if it would float or not, but so you'd think along those lines that a platinum ship would probably be the greatest ship of all. Mm-hmm. Would you think that's true?
Yes.
No, it's not. Do you know what the greatest ship is? Friendship.
That's true.
Thanks to the great Norm Macdonald.
Well, thank you. Thank
all
you.
Right.
You make me laugh.
Very good, very good. So, all right, what we're going to talk about today, when we first started the Goodwine Zone YouTube channel and business, we came and talked to Kim. We said we want to talk to you a little bit about how we need to set this up, what steps we need to take at the beginning of this business to ensure that we're in compliance with the tax laws, to set this up in the most beneficial way. And so Kim has got us on track. We also said, what would be a great idea? There's other people out there, lots of people doing the same thing. And we've always talked about, Kim, the purpose of our channel is to educate in an entertaining way.
Yes.
Okay.
I like that idea.
Thank you. So we thought let's talk about the top 3 tax tips for someone starting a business. Now, it could be any business, but a business in the genre of something of a YouTube business, right?
Yes.
Where you're acquiring some equipment. You might be acquiring certain garden tools if you're going to talk about gardening a certain way, that type of stuff. So really, how do we manage these things from a business aspect? And Kim, one thing before we get into these top 3 tips, I need to let everybody know you are my accountant.
Yes.
You are Smoking Hot's accountant. That's the editor, by the way. She's lovingly referred to as Smoking Hot on the Goodwine Zone channel most of the time. Mm-hmm. And you're the Goodwine Zone accountant.
Yes.
You're not their accountant, are you?
No.
So what that means is Kim is going to give us some general tips, but don't rely on what she says. Now, she is accountant extraordinaire. We're all accepting of that. But it's just a disclaimer. Don't go and say, well, Kim told me I could do it, and then you get in trouble because maybe you're out in California and it doesn't comply with the California laws, and now you're in trouble with the IRS, and now you sue the Goodwine Zone and you sue Kim. Well, too bad for you. We told you don't rely on us. Just some little helpful tips. Get over to see your own accountant, right, Kim?
Yes. You have to have your own professional advice.
There you go. All right, Kim. Now, what we're going to do, Kim is brilliant. Did I mention to you that she's known as the accountant extraordinaire? Did I mention to you? So what we're going to do is go in reverse order of importance. So tip number 3, take it away, Kim.
Okay. The third ranked, I am mostly asked by my client that they would like to know about the usage of the personal vehicle.
Okay.
So can I take a deduction of the usage of my personal vehicle? The answer could be yes. I said could be yes, not all the time. So there must be a way to how to allocate the personal vehicle usage to the business purpose. So there must be a way and a measurement how to allocate and what to deduct. Okay, so what to deduct is the cost of a car, and if you finance, and the interest costs as well, and general maintenance, insurance costs, a gas bill, toll, parking as well. And then how to allocate is going to be how much you actually use that personal vehicle to the business. So generally, we just advise my client to use the mileage, just record the mileage of the year. So of the year, I ran my car for 10,000 miles, and then I used my car over 5,000, which could be more than 50% or more. Then the car is qualified to be deducted the car expense of the 50% of whatever the cost.
Great.
So that's how you can actually record your mileage and record your actual expenses, plus your car cost and interest and whatever are related to maintain the personal vehicle for your business.
So, Kim, would that apply to a Tesla?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
I'm surprised that that's the third most important, because
Yes.
that was one of the top things on my mind.
Probably because everybody wants to use the personal car for the business in the beginning, because most of the businessmen will not really be able to afford a new car for the business only.
Right.
So that's going to be the sharing portion, and how to deduct your expense to income tax purpose.
Right. What about, I see some people, they slap a sign on their truck, one of these magnetic signs that has a business.
The signs,
so,
the
yeah.
cost of the signs is
Well, I mean, does that have any effect as far as the IRS is concerned on if it's a business vehicle or not, if they just slap one of these magnetic signs on it every now and then?
Well, every now and then.
I guess they can call it advertising.
Advertising, yes.
Okay, very good. All right, what's tip number 2?
Number 2, the people are next ask me the questions about business expense deduction.
Okay.
So business expense, what kind of expenses can I deduct on my tax returns? So the business expenses are very vary between personal expense to really business expense. But business expenses has 2 categories. One is for the ordinary. It has to be one that is common and accepted in your trade or business. This is definition on the IRS and the IRC code. And it must be necessary expense, necessary cost, which will be helpful and appropriate for your trade or business. So if I use my cell phone for my business, which means if I contact my clients or discuss any tax matters with the client or IRS agent or the state agent, then that's going to be appropriate, also helpful, so that I can use as a business deduction. But if I can use, then can I use my home phone for my business expense? That's going to be the no, because that's ordinary, but that is not necessary for my business, because I have my office line to be used to connect or to communicate with others. So home phone is not necessarily to be used for the business expense.
If you have an office phone,
yes,
then the home phone cannot be deducted in addition to the office phone.
Yes, correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's one of those things. And I have another concern about between expense and capitalizing. So IRS has 2 different lines that you can expense for the current year when the cost is incurred, or you have to capitalize and you have to use a depreciation schedule and a portion of the depreciation expense and over the time of the useful life of the asset. So there are 2 different categories, but you have to dig in with a little more details, so we can discuss sometime later.
And does that depend on the amount, the cost of that item? As to whether you have to depreciate it? Does it depend on the cost or no?
No, it is necessarily to be the capitalized, in which the asset is, are you going to use, how long you're going to use.
Oh,
but
I
it's
see.
not my attention. It is just a categorized furniture, fixture, building, or land. Land is not depreciated. So
Right.
there are some asset categories in the fixed schedule that also depreciation method is public on the posted in the IRS website as well.
Okay. Well, let me, for example, this camera, we spent $500 on this camera.
Yes.
I don't know how long we'll use it. Is that something we would depreciate or just take the whole expense off the first year? Or do you have, is that, we need to look at that later? It's not
Well,
for general discussion.
yeah, I can say that just they could be general because most of the computers or laptops and iPad and electronic devices are usually 3-year depreciable life of useful life.
Oh, okay.
But generally, and also IRS gave the business owners a deduct one big time bonus depreciation for the year, so which
Right, okay.
which could be possible
Okay.
in both ways.
All right. So that covered ordinary expenses and
And necessary as well.
okay, very good. All right, Kim. So what is the number one tax tip or the number one thing people ask you when they're setting up a business?
They want to know what is the appropriate tax entity type for the business.
Appropriate tax entity.
Tax entity and a business entity as well.
Okay.
Because when you choose the business entity, it follows through that you can choose it from different tax entities as well,
Okay.
based on what you want to do or how you share the profit or losses. So, for example, you can choose a sole proprietorship as a just individual.
Right.
Tax return purpose, and you can choose a partnership or the C corporation, and S corporations are the most common type that you can choose, but
Okay.
it relates to the different tax rates applied, so you have to be a little careful, and also you have to consider the liability consideration and
Right.
who is going to be more liable, what's going to be on me when something that happened to
Right.
the business. And a third, and how many people are involved, it's also
Right.
creates another consideration that you can choose the business entity or tax filing as well.
And an LLC. Not sure. Did we mention LLC? Limited
Yes.
liability.
Limited liability actually has a very different types of tax forms that you can choose between sole proprietorship and a partnership, which could have more than 2 people are involved, in a C corporation as well, and S corporation as well. So
And I know a lot of people think that, oh, I'm going to set up an LLC.
Yes.
It sounds official, but really, that's not. They may not necessarily save a lot of taxes by doing that, right?
that's right.
And
Correct.
that depends more. It's why it's called limited liability. That's more of a liability issue.
That's right. Exactly.
And even though some of these business entities may be the best choice, depending on, like you said, how many people are involved, what's their liability exposure, you're increasing the number of tax forms that you're going to have to fill out and send
That's
in,
right.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, and that's something that they just need to sit down with their individual accountant
Yes.
or tax attorney and
Yes.
and go through.
That's
All right.
very important, because once you set up the business and file to the Secretary of Alabama State,
Right.
it's hard to change it later on.
Okay.
So just be very careful about that.
Right. And with a sole proprietorship, there is no filing with the Secretary of State, right? So this has been great. Kim, you really helped me. I'm going to add a bonus tip
Yes.
that Kim told me about. To keep up with your mileage and expenses. See, I'm old. I mean, look at this. You can tell. And back in the day, we kept a little mileage log in the car.
Right.
Well, that was so hard to keep up with.
That's right.
So Kim told me, said, Alan, get an app. There's 1,500 apps that'll help you keep up with expenses.
Right.
And I looked at many.
Really?
Yeah,
Nice.
and there's one called Stride,
Okay.
Stride, and we'll do a review on it sometime. But it's great. You can hit a button when you leave the house, and it'll track your miles for you. Keep up with that, and when you stop, You hit stop. You can fill in a note where you were, what the purpose of it was. You can add expenses. You can take pictures of receipts. So it's all right there in your hand, and you can do it immediately instead of putting your receipts in a shoebox.
Oh.
And on April 10th, right before you come see Miss Kim, try to put it all together.
Yes.
So, and I don't receive anything from Stride. They're not a sponsor of our channel or anything. That's just one that I have found that so far has worked great for me. But
I guess I have to try to use that one too.
Okay.
To give you the big review.
Okay, very good. Well, listen, thanks a bunch, Kim. It's been awesome. Now, I got to get a commitment. How about next month we look at the top 3 mistakes you've seen people make
Sure.
when they initially set up business.
Right.
Sound good?
Yes, sounds
All right,
good.
everybody. Thanks again for visiting the Goodwine Zone. See you next time.
See you next time.